Our guest today travels the world teaching business owners and entrepreneurs to unlock a secret revenue stream that they never knew existed. Understanding the significance of storytelling, he escaped his own limits and he now helps people to raise their confidence in public speaking and influencing others both on and offline. So for a lesson in overcoming one of the biggest fears most people have, please join me in welcoming world-class speaker, author and master of mindset, Andy Harrington, to the Escape Your Limits podcast. So when I first met you, Andy, I was sitting in, I think I remember it was somewhere like the O2, or it was a big stadium. I remember sitting at the back and listening to you, like right at the front, because I was at the back, it was one of these Achievers conferences, I think, and I was sort of sitting at the back, a little bit cagey about what I was letting myself into. And I remember you having literally hundreds of people going up to the stage queuing to buy your product, and I was so impressed. I've never seen anyone with the ability to move so many people and I guess sell from a stage. The only other person I think was probably who's equally as good was when I went to see Tony Robbins. But I remember sitting there watching all these people come, and I thought, I need to learn about how this guy does that, because selling in person is difficult, but being able to sort of get people, off their seat and walking up and buying was pretty impressive. So
thanks.
So that's why I wanted to talk to you today. So so Andy, tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got to do what you're doing at the moment.
I think it's three things that I do. They're mindset, marketing, and message. It's kind of the three underpinning things that people who want to lead their business need, really. Because today we need a message, you need something core that describes what you do and how you do it. And you also need mindset constantly. As you know, that's never a one-time only ever thing. It's a constant, ever pruning process. And marketing, obviously, today is, as it always been, is key to get those leads coming in consistently. So that's what I do. And I kind of got around to doing it really just because I, like you, went to a conference one time and was inspired. I didn't originally go for me, I originally went for somebody else. But as a result of being there, I got inspired, thought, I'd love to do that. And then ultimately came back, started doing it and went, this isn't quite as easy as I thought it was. And it wasn't easy to get people in the room. It certainly wasn't easy to, as you said, to sell. Yeah. That's certainly when the time you saw me was not what happened the first time I did it. No. So, in fact, I remember not being too far from here in central London, doing an event, a couple of hundred people there, thought I'd give them my heart and soul to them, and then at the end, nobody bought. There's obviously quite a big cost putting events on. I was literally in Russell Square literally crying in my hands on the park bench, because I had another event due in the evening. I thought the last thing I want to do is go back on that stage and bomb again. So it was tough, but over the years I've kind of managed to figure out a magic formula, if you like, for doing it. Right. And of course now, having done that, I teach other people to do the same. Yeah. Much the same as you obviously came one time to learn it as well. So it's fun. I enjoy it. Yeah,
you always look so sort of natural and comfortable in front of people. What were you doing anything previously that was sort of entertainment based, or where you had to train people or teach people or do anything like that? Was that the industry you came from originally?
No, I did do a little bit of training when I was worked for an insurance company. I was quite interested. I remember one time the sales manager at the time was taking the sales training, and a few months before I'd said, look, I'd been there a few months. I said, look, you must be really busy. If you ever get too busy, I'd love to give it a go doing the sales training. I haven't really experienced anything, but I'm sure I'll give it a good go. Didn't think of it. About X number of months later, she taps me on the shoulder and says, did you still want to do that training? I said, yeah, okay. She said, all right, well, you're on in 5 minutes. And so from the very beginning, when I first trained, I've never ever written any notes of content. I don't write scripts of content, because it's crazy when you think about it, because language, in essence, is an unconscious skill. You don't think about what you're going to say before you say it. The only place we do that is when we go on stage and have to prepare a speech and then repeat the thing that we've thought, 3 days before. I mean, that's just causing stress. Yeah. Now, don't get it wrong, you do need a structure for your presentation, but it doesn't need to be structured at the level of words, because even if you do manage to pull it off, you're going to be pretty stilted and pretty dry and not conversational. So in essence, you need to create a different kind of flow to the presentation. When you're passionate and you know your subject well, a bit like this interview now actually, if you ask me questions, then my mind will find the answers, because if you know your topic well enough, then they bubble to the surface. A bit like Google, you type into Google a question, well, then the search terms come back up. The search term brings up the references. Your brain works exactly the same way. You ask me a question, it taps into my store information, and well, hey pops, there comes an answer. So there's not any need really to pre-prepare the answers, because they're there anyway. The skill is knowing what questions to ask yourself on stage, because in an interview, you're there as the interviewer interviewing me, fairly comfortable, fairly easy. But on stage, there's no other person. So you have to be the other person as well. You have to almost ask yourself those questions and answer them yourself rhetorically. And that actually makes it sound conversational rather than just some kind of monologue. Makes it more interesting for people to listen to as well. And also breaks up for you at the same time. And the right question to ask each time is the question your audience is thinking in their head. So if you say something, then typically, if you're in a conversation, somebody else would ask you a question about the thing you've just said. So what you do is you ask yourself the question, rhetorically, about the thing you just said, and what it does, it deepens the audience's understanding. They get a greater knowledge of it, and as we say, chunk down a bit, gives them a little bit more detail about what you meant by what you said. And then it just sounds natural. That's what we're used to hearing. What we're not used to hearing is someone da-da-da-da-da for like 10 hours at a time, or for 20 minutes, 30 minutes without gasping. It's just impossible. It's just a ridiculous notion to even try.
Yeah, I remember when I went through the academy, and you said, don't use the notes. And I remember the first time I went up, and I was I think I went there for a purpose. I was doing this tour presenting our company. And I remember I was just petrified. One, I was petrified to get up in front of people. And then two, I was petrified to go there without my notes. Right. And because it's like, well, the fear is that you'll forget what to say. That's right. And I had to keep it, even though I didn't ever look at it, I had to keep it as this sort of crutch just in case. That's right. I wanted to know what to do. Do you think that's common for most people? There's this fear of standing up and speaking, whether it's on camera or on stage?
Yeah, it's just a social anxiety fear based on looking foolish in front of people, which is a natural fear to have. But when you're much better off preparing just by rehearsing, just so, because there's different writing for the page and performing on a stage. So when you're preparing your content, the best thing to do is just speak it out loud. Just ask those, come up with 10 questions you're going to basically ask yourself an answer in your 30-minute talk. Today I'm going to talk about X. Well, now what do I mean by X? Well, what I mean is blah, 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 blah. Now, why is X a good idea? Well, here's why. Da, 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 da. And what's the practical applications of X? Well, really, when you think about it, you've got this and you've got this and you've got this. So how would you go about implementing X? Well, that's a good question. Da, 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 da. See, all the answers are already there. If you know that structure of questions, you'll never, ever run out of something to say, ever. And you'll always have a conversation with the audience. And then you can focus on, not the message, but the audience. Right. You can truly be in the zone. And as a sports person, as an athlete, or anybody who's into that kind of area will know that when you're an athlete, when you're truly at the world-class level, you don't think about the game. In fact, the more you think about the action of what you're doing, your forehand, the bounce of the basketball, whatever, you don't think about that. You leave that. That's all kind of just natural. It's all there. The basketball, you're playing basketball. The only thing you don't look at is the ball when you've got it. So the ball is your message. Never look at your message. You should be focusing on the game. In this case, your audience. Well, if you're basketball, that's the other players. Then you're 3 seconds, 2 moves ahead of everybody else, because your focus is on the right part of the game rather than the wrong part of the game. If you were a kid, for example, you'd bounce the ball, you'd be looking at it. Yeah. Kids that play football do that. Ball's coming to them, stare at the ball rather than look, where's the ball coming? So now another game. And that's what top level people have to do, is be in that zone. And if you remember from Academy, the way to do that is to get into peripheral vision. Once you're in peripheral vision, all sports people do that. If you're, we just had the tennis here, haven't we? If you're receiving the ball, then you're reading the whole thing. What you're not doing is focusing on any one thing. You're kind of taking the collective in, and you drop into that performance zone. Again, if you're a singer, you don't think about the words. As soon as you start overthinking the words, you get your words messed up. As soon as you start thinking about the dance moves, and you start looking at your feet, you're going to mess up the dance. You've got to trust yourself. That's the key. Because the knowledge is there. The ability, the talent is there, but it can only be tapped into when you get out the way. And what that means is get your conscious mind out the way, because all your ability, all your knowledge, all your genius, all of your intuition, all of that's stored in the unconscious part of you where you're not thinking. But of course, it's not easy to do, is it? Because you get on stage, you get fearful. As soon as you get fearful, you become highly conscious. You start thinking about with your conscious mind, you go into what we call foveal vision. You collapse down and focus on the one thing, my speech, getting it wrong, communicating to yourself rather than communicating to them. And hey, presto, it's a bit of a chain that fires off and you end up with that fear, don't you?
Yeah. So is part of that then the preparation? So just before you go on there, really being good at it first? Because I guess, probably the bit I didn't do was I probably didn't practice it enough. So when I was on there, even if I was trying to turn off my conscious, I probably needed more practice. Is that a big part of it?
It can be. Look, I'll be honest, maybe I'm unique, I don't know. I've never practiced a speech ever. Right. My practice is live, because I just trust myself to do it. And because I find I switch on better. If I just talk to a wall, I'm probably rubbish, because I feed off the audience, I feed off that moment. So for me, no, but it's about the structure. And when we start with big chunks, so like in a presentation, the first 5, 6, 7 to 10 minutes, it's all about positioning. You've got to position the message, you've got to position the audience, you have to position yourself, you've got to position the timeliness of your message, which really is answering the question of why. Why should you listen? Why should you listen to me? Why listen now? And why listen to this? So that's your first 4 questions. And then their mind's open. It's like people sit in a conference most of the time. It's like, I don't really want to be here. What I mean? I'm here for the free tea and whatever, So, most people don't actually want to be there. Or if they do, they've got a ton of other stuff they really are worried about they ought to be doing instead of sitting in this chair. So there's no point teaching them anything or selling them anything until their mind's open. Okay. The beauty of how the market has shifted today for all types of entrepreneur people is that the sales conversation is now a very different conversation. Because the problem with any type of sales setup is the customer's defensive. Yeah. Because, you're selling to me, so I naturally mismatch you, I naturally am skeptical. But if we change the frame and make it education, if the reason we're talking to these people because we're going to give to them, we're going to educate them, we're going to pass on some wisdom, some knowledge, some tips and know-how, then in order for people to learn, their mind has to open. Mm-hmm. And you can subtly be positioning and selling at the same time that you start educating. Okay. So in essence, you elongate the sales process because, when you're educating someone, you can talk to them for longer. When it's a sales situation, it's got to be shorter and shut right down. So education is the key. Right. Education, entertainment, and emotions, the 3 E's.
And does that relate, so we're talking about being on stage, but would the same principles relate to if you was doing a Facebook post or something on social media?
Correct, exactly right. Yeah, I mean, this is the one big error everyone makes on a video, and I've probably made it in the past as well, so, is that everyone starts by introducing themselves. Nobody cares about that. Right? Remember, you've got a 1-minute Instagram video, for example. You're not really chewing up the first 20 seconds talking about yourself. So it's like, hi, I'm so-and-so from, best-selling author of blah, 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 and today. They've already gone. It's like, hey, in this video, I'm going to share 3 tips how if you are a blah, 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 a blah, 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 or a blah, blah, blah kind of person, how you can get result A, B, and C as quickly as possible without the hassle of D, E, and F. Okay, the first tip. Nobody really cares who you are at this point. You can leave that to the end if you like. Really? It's about giving them value. Nobody really cares. Right. Give them what they want. It's not about you.
And do you think with the sort of I guess popularity of social media, do you think it's even more relevant now to focus on education? Because I suppose one of the things that you always talked about is a lot of people are in that satisfaction stage. They don't actually realise that they're even ready to buy. When I came to that I think it was at O2 or somewhere.
Maybe Excel.
Excel, yeah. When I was there, I didn't even think that I was
being sold to.
Yeah, and I didn't even think I need public speaking. But the way you position it, and for everyone's benefit, I'll get you to sort of explain a bit about your story and who you spoke to. But the way you explained it to me, it was like, shit, I'm a business owner. This is really, really useful for me. You kind of taught me a lot of stuff, even the raising the hands and all those bits. I thought, this is brilliant. I was scribbling away before I even went. And I thought, I kind of almost thought, well, if I leave a place now, I've got some things that I've got value from it. So do you think now we have to change the way that if we're in sales, we've got to change the way that we sell to people by providing a lot more value and educating them, do you think?
Of course. Look, everything evolves. Business evolves, customers evolve, what they expect evolves, and of course they get cuter at understanding the process of what's going on. So you have to evolve, otherwise you'd be a dinosaur and left behind, So, years ago, if you wanted to get a message out, it had to be newspapers, radio, TV, that kind of stuff, right? Which was always issues because either there's a gatekeeper stopping you because, we don't know who you are, thank you, you're not getting on our channel. Or you had to pay to play by advertising. And the problem with that is just like, it's a big blanket advertising because 99% aren't really interested in what you've got, or if they are, they've not got that pain point right now anyway. But you've still got to pay for the eyes and the ears to hear or see the message. Mm-hmm. Social media changes that dynamic because of the niching effect of targeting, right? But even then, you've got to remember that not everyone's ready to buy when you're ready to sell. Right? So it's about cultivating the relationship, right? So if you can, and there's no reason why you can't be developing those assets, the YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or if your audience is younger, Snapchat, whatever, and developing your presence and that asset on that platform. And then what that does is the moment one or more of those clients hits what we call the first moment of truth, where they do now have the problem, it is acute enough that I want a solution. Who's the first person they think of in that moment? Who's the person they trust already in that moment? Look, Nike have done the same thing. All big advertisers have done it for years. They just have big pockets, so they can afford to, permeate into your mind the fact that they are the experts for running shoe, so that when you go, I need a running shoe, you don't think Dunlop Green Flash, you think Nike, right, because of what it means. But they spend a lot of time indoctrinating you into that idea through sponsorships, billboards, endorsements, etc. So all the social media has done effectively is given the average Joe the opportunity to play exactly the same game, to have the same permeative effect on people, except you don't have to have that go out to 5 billion people. You can do that for around 5,000, 15,000 people can have that effect. Because for most businesses, they don't need to be that big because they're not, they don't need to be billions. Right. They're not, and frankly, they probably wouldn't even want that kind of business anyway. They want a lifestyle business, lots of them. But whether you're a giant corporation or not, you have to invest in content and not give lip service to it, not just, just rubbishy bits of content here and there. Genuinely absorbing, engaging content that moves people emotionally, or educates them, or entertains them, or ideally all three of those in one go, right? Which is one of the best ways to achieve that is through story. If you can build stories around your marketing, it will often carry much more weight overall time than it will if it was just an odd, bit of content, a bit of teaching stuff. Trying to get more engagement. It's the key to it, is engagement, isn't it? Because, if people engage with your content on most social media, then that gives you an opportunity to then go back out to the same audience, because the metrics are that we can measure who's clicked and liked and who's hovered over that bit of content for long enough. We can then retarget those people with future content. The platforms love that as well, because it's essentially giving the users what they need. And if you've got engaging content, Facebook and all those other algorithms are going to help you, because they say, well, look, you're doing us a favour because you're keeping people on our platform. Right. And that's what they really care about, is time spent on the platform. Because the longer you spend on the platform, the more advertising spend or advertising exposure that you're likely to have, and therefore they'll make more money. Seemingly so, you'll also get penalised. If people will come and see your content and leave social media because you're adding to the I'm bored, I don't want this content stuff, then they'll penalise that for you, and it's harder to play.
So I remember a long time ago you telling me about putting out your best information and giving it away for free. Yeah. Like you're sort of, I think you gave an example to the music industry or something, and it was always kind of counterintuitive to me. It's like, well, why would you give your best stuff for free? Why would people then want to come to you then? Tell me a little bit about that philosophy.
Yeah, information for free, implementation for fee.
Okay.
So, because information's so widely available, if all you're doing is selling information and expecting to get rich, I'm afraid you're way behind the times, right? Yeah. That might have been years ago. You could sell information, little ebooks here and there, but then no one's going to. Rarely is that going to carry enough of a dollar or a pound spend to make your business thrive. So instead, we're using information as a lead generation to build that audience. That's the key. Build an audience, because what people want and need, more importantly, to take another step after they've got the information is not more new information, thank you very much. It's the same information, but at a level that gets them, okay, what button did you say I need to press? It's now the more comprehensive, more chunked down, detailed, coal-face information that they need to help them really implement that advice at that level, to get their hands on it. Now, if you sell a product, it's still the same thing, because I know you sell products, same thing. Give them the information, right? Get the visibility, add value, be generous and giving. At the same time, they still need to buy the products that help with that particular type of exercise, for example, or building that particular kind of muscle. So there still needs to be some practical application. And if there's a tool or a product that helps to go with that, then clearly you're well positioned to be the person they'll buy that product from. So, yeah, it is a good thing to be giving away lots of value. So think about it in three forms. I call it DIY, DWY, DFY. So DIY, that's do it yourself. So in essence, you give information to people in either posts or information products, but they have to do the implementation themselves because you're not physically there, right? You're only there in pre-recorded format, in some kind of written, spoken, whatever. So that can either be free content or very low paid content. A book, for example, is an example of the product type, but what is it? £10, $20, right? That's it. Then you've got your DWY, done with you. That in essence is information, but also implementation at the same time because you're physically there. But the best way to monetize that is to try to do the done with you where possible, one to many. So you're there, but you've got multiple of your clients there at the same time gathering and getting that information. And then the done for you service, DFY, is where you provide a customized service almost, tailored for what they want. So your advice or what you're giving them or what package you're providing for them is directly suited to them specifically. It's not a one size fits all, it's a one size fits just one person. Right. So in essence, therefore, giving them, they pay more for that because it's more tailored service. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And if you
think about it, it's like in gyms, it's the same, same thing. So your DIY could be a home fitness product. Yeah. Done with you is your classes. Done for you, that's your one-to-one mentoring or your coaching and personal trainer, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
And how important, and I know you've talked about these different models, but one of the things that sort of hit me when I worked with you is although I kind of went there thinking I was going to learn how to be a speaker, it was very focused around a framework. And what I came away with was the model and the framework seemed to be way more powerful than just speaking skills. Right. Tell me, or tell the listener about that sort of, that model itself, those key things that you needed to do and the importance of having some sort of model or system for selling, marketing and creating your products.
Yeah, so in essence, think of it like a map. So your client is at point A, that's their starting place, and they want to be over at point B, their result place, right? So point A is the problem, point B is the result of where they want to be. So again, you could think about it. Okay, here's the person at the beginning of their journey. They are either overweight, underweight, too much fat, whatever, out bad shape, whatever. But they want to be over here looking like Adonis or, Kim Kardashian or something. And obviously there's a big gap between those two. So the idea is clearly they want to get from here to there. And so there's a gap between your product and service needs to fill that gap. But what you have to appreciate is when you're trying to explain that journey to that new client who's frankly feeling terrified, because here's a good thing to remember. People aren't afraid. They're not afraid of the problem. They're actually afraid of the solution. Right. He or she's isn't really that concerned about being fat and overweight. No. I mean, they are, but the fear of going to the gym and going through the hell of trying to reshape their body is more painful in their mind than sticking with the shitty body they've got at the moment, if that makes sense. Yeah. And so you have to be able to change that dynamic, right? Until it becomes too painful to keep this and less painful to take the solution, they'll probably stick with the pain of the problem. So one way you can alleviate that is to show them what the journey looks like over time. And to do so, you've got to have some stepping stones along the way of how that works. So from a gym perspective, for example, and showing how that person makes that leap. Because of course, your typical way of showing that is before and after photographs, right? There's that's what so and so looked like it here, and of course that's very convincing. But there's a number of steps in between, and actually it's quite useful for people to see. Okay, it's going to take me 6 months, right? And it's not just about showing photographs. It's about showing, okay, this is what we worked on first. So that was like week 1 to 5. Then but then as a result of that, we then need to work on this thing. So we changed dynamic, we changed the food plan, we changed this because we needed to change the metabolic rate around, or we need to focus on building this rather than this, that kind of stuff, and show the actual pathway. And then if that's universal, if it works that way for most people, then you've actually got a method of how you do it. That builds confidence in you, the provider, because you go, okay, well, there's a method to my madness. Because a lot of people don't know that. They're just genius at what they do and sort of make it up as they go along without realising they actually are following a method. Yeah. And what you've then created, if you then create this map or method or recipe, call it what you like, blueprint, it also gives because if you're providing a service, which you frankly are, right, rather than the product for most people, certainly gyms, of course, it's a service, then it takes the intangible and makes it tangible, takes the invisible and makes it visible, because you're selling a service. What is that? So you've got to show them what that is, and okay, once they're in it and experiencing it, go great, I get it, I know it. But at the point of sale, if someone could map out the journey of this is what is going to happen, this is what it's going to look like for the next 3 to 6 months, this is it, we've got this down. You're essentially building a bridge between where they are and where they want to be across the troubled waters, right? And what that does, it breeds confidence in that person. Oh, look, this person's done this before. They've got a method. It's like, wow. And you can paint the picture in the mind of the journey then, you see. Another way to say it is, let's say, okay, I've just cut back from Sydney long ago, and you've obviously been from the States, no doubt. But, if you're in, let's say you was in Sydney and you needed to end up a result in London, and you'd never done it before, well, you'd want someone to tell you the journey, right? You go, okay, here's what's happening. We're going to go from Sydney. We're going to go to Singapore. Then we're going to go from Singapore to Dubai. Then we go from Dubai to Germany. Then we go from Germany to London, and that would build confidence. Or if you're going to climb a mountain, for example, Mount Everest, you'd probably want to hire the Sherpa, right? And you'd think he would know the steps, right? And that's what you've got to do. You've got to basically show people the steps, the pathway to the result they're getting. Otherwise, it's such a massive leap of faith that most people won't believe they can do it. Perhaps also more importantly, as they then begin that journey, if they complete weeks 1 to 5, they go, I've done what it said in weeks 1 to 5. They go, well, I'm probably going to carry on doing this. And that stops the cancellations and the refunds because they lose, momentum because there's this pathway that they're following. Okay, if they get off the pack, no worries. You were off this week, no problem. Or you couldn't make it because you're on holiday, no worries. Okay, that week starts here. There needs to be some method to it, I think. And of course, it's unique. Fitness is different for everyone. So maybe there's one. Okay, this is what we're going to do if we're just losing body fat. This is what we're doing if you're a female and you want to, have a good-looking behind, for example. Whatever it is you want to achieve, there should be a model for it. that doesn't feel like the experts making it up as they go along. I think that's true of a lot of these gym guys, right? These PTs. You turn up and the PT and like, he's not thought about this session. He's making this shit up. He's going, what? Let's go on this machine, right? That's not good enough. It should be pre-planned. What I do, you asked me earlier, so 4 years I've been doing this. I've got an online trainer. I actually have an online trainer that fixes my meal plan and my workout plan every week. And I have to check in every week and give him like my results. And then he's following a plan. I know what the plan is, but he'll make small adjustments to that plan along the way, depending on whether I was off the plan this week because I went on a plane, for example, and actually plane food or something, or whatever. Then he's going to make small adjustments on the way. So it's that accountability bit. Speaking about gyms again, this is quite an interesting argument to have. We talked about the DIY, the DWI, the DFY. So clearly gyms all have the DWI classes. So that's a done with you solution with other people. Good monetization model, obviously. Help more people, less money for them to spend. Done for you. They have the people, the gyms. They don't have the DIY. No. They're afraid of the DIY. Really? They think if they create their own branded products of, videos of how to do stuff, people won't come to the gym. They'll stay at home instead. They're wrong.
Really?
They're wrong. Because it's that supports this, that supports this. And what that then becomes, that information product they create for, working out at home, what it's like, that just okay, fine, they'll make money from doing that, or just a good lead gen. Yeah. I promise you it will get people in the gym. Right. Because people want to come to the gym because they want, not just to work out, they want the community.
And do you think then, like, the importance of putting that stage in is twofold? Is that lead gen, so,
yeah.
It gives you some people to go after, and also the low price point, which can be...
People like David Lloyd, I'm a David Lloyd member, right? I should be receiving on Facebook videos of how to work out. I should be telling, this is how you do this particular exercise. This is how you work out your shoulders. Why am I not getting those? Why am I not getting those videos? These people are the experts. That's not going to stop me going to the gym. It's going to make me go to the gym. It's not going to make me work out at home and do the exercise. It's going to make me go to the gym for that specific bit of kit. Right. Every piece of kit, every week, every day, there should be a video coming out demonstrating the correct form to use that. We have these bloody videos, don't you? See them on YouTube of people doing stupid stuff with machines. Yeah. Like the epic fails. Where's the epic well-used examples? Right? Big organisations like David Lloyd should have those. Maybe they do. But if they do, why don't I know they exist? Where are they? Hidden on their website somewhere? Maybe. I'm not People don't go to people's website. I'm not going to go, David Lloyd, check the website out. I'm on social media. I'm not going to their website. Right? Not maybe if Becky does it, I'm going to go and book the classes and whatever. And she actually has a little ding, 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 like at 3 minutes to when it releases for the classes, 2 minutes to 8. Her alarm goes off so she can get in to book that class that she wants for Blaze or whatever, right? So she has to do it for that reason. But, I just think, why not? I mean, that's just one idea.
Could you charge for that, do you think?
I don't think you'd need to.
Right.
I don't think you'd need to charge. You wouldn't. Well, that's not the model for social media.
Right.
I don't think you'd need to. I mean, because your DIY doesn't have to be charged, right? Okay. It doesn't have to be. That's your posts that go out. So they should have social media going out. I mean, they should be seen as this is the correct form for using these exercises, right? And then every now and again, build some stories in. Give me some stories. Where's the case study stories of someone's, result? Okay, they've got this PT trainer. Where's my before and afters? Where is this story? Well, come on, David Lloyd. Come on, these gyms. What are you doing? You're way behind the times. If you're, if you want to get more gym, you could increase that gym membership by 2, 3, 4, 5 times more membership easily. Because you're permeating into people's minds, you're adding value. They're seeing the actual pitch and result they want on a constant basis. Show examples of people working out on those machines, build the stories in. Right. There's going to be some great content in there. Amazing. Yeah. It's just so visceral, it's so easy to demonstrate, right? It's so easy to show the results. Or were they afraid that people don't get those results?
So are you, with that particular model then, that's really where you're building your potential audience to engage with and upsell to other products, maybe your group program or your personal training, that would be the reason to sort of communicate that type of message.
Yeah, exactly. Again, even they've got like, when you look around the gyms as well, they've got all these, TVs and units and stuff. I can see the Blaze thing, like the little advert for Blaze or whatever. But again, where's the stories, right? Your clients will always be your best form of marketing, always. And, okay, well, we can stick a banner up, whatever, but it's pretty static, right? Where's the engagement? Remember, we've moved on, we're not just print anymore. Let's get engaged. Where's the videos? Show me that story. Build me a nice story, 3, 4, 5 minutes. Where's the documentary, ongoingness? Okay, we're going to document something. How about a story ongoingly, right? We're going to pick a member, right? This member, we're going to follow your story for the next 12 weeks. We're going to follow his journey, and we're going to document that along the way, his workouts, chat to him every now and then about how it's going, what's your challenge, what frustrations you have. We follow his journey, her journey, see the results they get massively. Let's watch that over 12 weeks live. Oh my God, what a great idea. I should get paid to do this.
And with stories, there's a process as well to doing a story, isn't there?
Sure, yeah, absolutely, yeah. There's a 3-act sequence in essence. So if you're doing the story, then if you were taking that client, for example, on day 1, for example, we'd want to flash back. We'd want to flash back to and film a little bit about his or her current issues, the problem. So we have to establish the problem. The starting point in any story is the problem, right? Because otherwise there's nothing to transcend. In essence, we have to establish point A, right? So point A is our starting point. So what's the problem, right? We always say, if you sit down with somebody, you say, what's the matter, right? Which is, essentially, what's the form of your problem, right? So we have to establish the problem because that's the thing they're going to transcend at the end. And there's nothing more rapport building, by the way, than someone who's got the same problem as you, right? When somebody else got the same problem, it's like glue. You go, oh, you have the same problem as me? Yeah, right? So if this person, it's now, all those people watching are thinking, yeah, that's just like me. I've had that, I'm down on my luck, or I've had a relationship, meltdown, for example. I know that's why I'm getting back in the gym, because I want to feel strong about myself. Let's build that story, right? And go from that, we go to Act 2, which is all about the journey. So Act 1's about establishing the problem, Act 2's about the journey. The first part of the journey, it's not going to look very nice. The first part of the journey, the hero's reluctance, he's all pumped up in the beginning about going on the journey, and then in reality it's 3 days in, he's got DOMS. Oh my God, can't move, that sort of stuff, and think, I'm not going back to that gym anymore. So he's going to hit some kind of road bump, it's inevitable. There's and he goes into a holding pattern, delay, denial, distraction, doubt, and it's almost like, it's not really going to work. And then there has to be some kind of catalyst, something that changes everything, changes his or her mindset back, So, and then from there, there's like the insight, wow, I get it now. Then he gets into flow. Then she gets into flow. Start really getting into performance zone now. Things start to pick up. And Act 3 is all about transformation. Act 3 is like, okay, result, little win, small win, big win, and then the big final transformation, the big reveal at the end sort of thing. That's what a story is. Whether it's The Lion King, Frozen, Dirty Dancing, Shawshank Redemption, whatever, they pretty much all follow the same 3-act structure. So, and you can all of that can take place in either a 12-week documentary series on following someone. It could take place in a 5 to 10 minute video.
Really?
All of that can happen, whether short sequences or longer form sequences, but that story has to be there. Yeah.
Right, and that's a common way of telling stories in movies and everything, pretty much.
Yeah, if you look for it, you'll see exactly that pattern consistently. Right. It's always there. Yeah, and there's loads of what we call beat. That's the basic form, but there's loads of mini what we call beat change in the story as well, which is where the story just kind of changes direction or changes speed, as in tempo. For example, there's always if the organisation, let's say a gym organisation is wanting to take one of those clients like that, then there has to be something in the story early on that makes the viewer like that person. If we dislike their journey, we care less. So there's actually a part in every story, where it's a case study story or a Hollywood blockbuster, where they have a scene or something happens which is called Save the Cat, when in essence the main character saves a cat. They don't, but it's something like that. It's just an act of kindness or something about to go, yeah, you know what? They are a bit fucked up, but you know what? they're a nice person, and you begin to cheer for them a little bit. Make sense?
Right.
That's super important, because otherwise, if the audience don't have buy-in for the main character, they won't watch that 12-episode series, you see, because we don't care. We don't think about that. We watch a thing, right? A binge watch something, right? The reason we watch it is because we care. We actually care about this transformation. We care about this character, right? We want to know whether he gets there in time, she gets there in time. You know, we want to care whether she gets the girl. We care about whether he gets the throne, you know, Game of Thrones, whatever, right? We actually begin to care. Does that make sense? Yeah. And that is super, super important, yeah.
So when putting these videos out, it's more than a case of just, you know, making a nice video. You've really got, those key parts of the process are really important to thrash out and communicate.
Yeah, we've got to tell the story.
Yeah.
We've got to tell the story of where, you know, look at Apple, for example, when Steve Jobs was around, right? Every product launch, they tell the story of the product. It's the story of the creation of that. And that will follow the same sequence, as in, we had this problem. We wanted to solve this, we couldn't find it. We couldn't figure out how to make this thing smaller, bigger, you know, more robust, whatever, the glass, touchy, whatever. We couldn't figure it out, you know, da-da-da-da-da, and you're like, oh, and then this, and then that, and then they're telling the story of the damn product, right? And we're absorbed in the whole thing, and we're, wow, well done. How do I get the product? Steve Jobs was brilliant at doing that, absolutely brilliant. You sell the story, not the product. Yeah. And then the product sells itself.
And coming back to the process, because one of the things I remember talking about, so one I think it was, for me, it hit home how important it is to have a process, even though they're things that we automatically do for customers. It seemed as though just by highlighting them and putting titles to those steps, it kind of made things a lot more professional. Even though everybody does it, for me it's like, look, yeah, we really need to just explain that and say there's 6 or 7 steps within it. And I can I've never really seen it in fitness clubs, and I'm sure people do it. But so the first question is, by putting one of those in, do you think that's likely to improve your value and the price that you're able to charge something, just by kind of doing a bloody good job at documenting those key steps?
I think 2 things. I think, because look, when you've got a framework, a recipe, a documented process, it's good for 2 reasons. One, it helps drive more sales, because it eases the sales conversation, because we can talk about the process and the journey that the customer will go on. Mm-hmm. But of course, these processes are also used internal as well. So therefore, they should be, there should be internal frameworks that the staff are following for doing certain things. And that makes the value of the business go up. Because any business that's going to be sold, right, a lot of the value about how the business works is in the employees' heads. Mm-hmm. And the biggest fear is somebody new comes in, all those employees leave with all the intellectual property in their head, and you've bought this dead duck. You don't know what the hell to do. There's no manual, right? So when a business has documented processes for it, then in essence, that's what the organization is really buying. Other than the goodwill, the brand, the name, and the existing assets around the business, the fixed assets and the current staff, what it's really buying is this sausage machine, in effect, of how this company makes money. Marketing processes, sales processes, HR processes, making a cup of coffee process. I know you can get to the nth degree with this stuff, but actually the more you process it, and then you haven't got to hire incredible people all the time. You just hire people by their values, not by their skills. Because then values are impossible to change. Not impossible, that's unfair, but values are more difficult to instill within people. So you hire people based on fit culture, and then, of course, you teach them the processes. Yeah, much easier.
Yeah, because I guess if you've got a number of facilities and you've got a few good trainers in certain ones, then that space, that group training is going to be very much reliant on that person. And when he or she goes and does their own studio, suddenly your business that you've invested a huge amount of money is kind of gone with them.
Yeah, exactly. Blaze does that quite well. Like for sort of David Lloyd, because I just want to know. It is a process. There's a program. It runs. Yeah. And okay, people who go in the who would know certain trainers are better than other ones to pull it off. For example, there's always that uniqueness in it. Yeah. But it lessens the it keeps the core product more unified.
Yeah. And then when you, in terms of selling then, you actually also are selling those individual steps as well. So rather than selling, I suppose you sell the whole process, but you can then...
Well, you can piecemeal it as well. Yes, that's the whole point. You know, you can break it up because any solution or any problem that someone's trying to solve, you know, whether it's going from this body to that body, or from this poor level of marketing to that level of marketing, or this level of sales to that level of sales. You know, there's a whole journey, but you can just slice it as well. So you can either sell the whole comprehensive, here's how we're going to do it over the course of the next 6 months thing, or we can go, okay, well, you just buy the first step. Because, or it doesn't, maybe you're buying the third step, because maybe person A here has already got steps 1 and 2 done, so they can jump in here instead. So it gives you more, or gives the customer more choice of where to jump into the process, which is nice for some people, because some people don't want to go for the laborious starting at ground zero thing. So it still gives you an opportunity to sell.
Yeah. And I remember sort of actually also learning how to sort of, you know, I think you call it salting, is that right?
Yeah.
Sort of, you know, before you give those different messages, to start sort of pre-selling people on.
Correct.
And just talk through that.
Yeah, so, you know, before you sell someone on something, it's important to get their state excited, or curious at least. So rather than, as most people do, if you're doing you know, your classic boring business presentation, it's driven by the PowerPoint, in which case you click it and then it tells you what you're going to say and then you say it. What you need to do is, before you click that mouse or clicker and reveal this important step, talk about it first before you tell them what it is. Because you get them excited about it, and you do that by referencing pain and gain. So, you know, okay, the next thing I want to talk about, the first step's so important, and we focus on this so much, and people find this so such a big advantage, because what it gives them is advantage A, B, C, and D, and stops this problem, you know, Z, Y, and X. Now, what we've discovered is that the most important thing to focus on first is, and then you tell them. And so what you've done is you've kind of got them excited, because it's always gain and pain, right? We're driven by two forces: move away from something, move towards something. So if you, before you explain this important step, if you kind of engage the move away from, move towards, and then show them, they're already excited by the time they see that step. Otherwise, they see the step and go, what's that? And then you've got to explain it. So you're coming from a place of non-excitement, a bit of confusion first. But if you get them excited first by talking around it and then reveal it, then you're driving that slide rather than the slide driving you, which is what mostly happens and kills people with death by PowerPoint.
Yeah. Do you think that's like in sales and marketing, and that's a big part of what you do and what you teach? Do you think then a part of probably how people can do a lot better is just sort of putting a system around that whole process and describing what they've got? Because I think, you know, certainly I know in the health and fitness industry, a lot of people I talk to and businesses, it is a very single message. You know, it's like, okay, we're going to, you know, drop a dress size or whatever it is. It's quite a simple message, and I suppose this, you know, with fitness, there's so many different opportunities for different age groups, different, you know, male, female, high income, low income. There's so many different ways to sell fitness, and yet it's very much about, well, you know, we'll get you a six pack or we'll lose a few pounds. And I'd just be interested. I see you kind of, I suppose, outside of the industry, but having a good experience. You know, what's your thoughts on that?
You've got to understand how to showcase what it is you've got, and in essence, regardless of what you're selling, the six pack, the losing weight, you have to be able to sell the vision of that to them. So don't keep selling me the features of it. You've got to sell me the vision. Let me give a reference that's outside of fitness and even outside of selling and marketing altogether to prove a point. So take a phobia, and then we look at a compulsion. These are two ends of the same spectrum, right? A phobia is a massive away from something, and a compulsion, or an addiction, you can say that as well, is a move towards something, right? These are two extremes of this. They're the two extreme ends of those two elements. And in both cases, people are, let's say over this case we've got here afraid of spiders, and on this end I can't stop eating chocolate, right? Now, what's interesting is somebody who's afraid of spiders is not actually afraid of spiders. They are afraid of how they represent the spider in their own head. What does that mean? It means a true phobic doesn't have to have the spider present to be afraid of it. They can just think about it and run the fear, right? And in the case of the opposite end, the chocolate, somebody who loves chocolate and can't stop eating it keeps on eating the memory of the chocolate before they eat the chocolate, right? As in, like, you roll the scenario in your head of the good feelings and the flavour and the taste and the picture and the sound when you crunch it out the fridge. All that stuff is happening in your head before you go to the fridge, right? Now, it might be triggered off by the little advert that you saw on TV or the billboard, etc., or some small, empty, insecure feeling you had inside that moment, as everybody has, and it triggers off that image and that picture. And if you keep on seeing it vivid enough for 1-2 minutes in your head, whatever, or just 10 seconds, you go and do it. So when it comes to selling, what you're trying to do is you're trying to create a phobia to the problem and a compulsion to the solution. So you're trying, in essence, to create pain around the problem such that they are phobic to hanging on to their old ways of doing things, their old ways of eating and not looking after their body. Got to get a phobia away from that, and a compulsion for the gym. So when you're selling, whatever it is you're selling, you've got to know how to build that picture, and you have to do it subtly. You have to do it in such a way the other person doesn't know you're doing it. Because as soon as the frame is you're selling to me, I'll shut down. Yeah. Which is why I said go back to the education. So during the sales pitch, if it's a case of you educating the person, and as you start to educate them, you start just building that little picture of what it is they really want, and you start building the horrible picture of where they're at right now, sale done every single time.
Right. And that's pretty much what you teach in your workshops, is it?
Yeah, I mean, look, we teach public speaking, right? But it's far from that. Because public speaking is just a vehicle, right? And I'm not in the game to teach somebody just to, let's say, overcome the fear of public speaking. They will anyway. But it's about how do I use it as an influencing tool in business? Because you're speaking all the time, right? Now, whether it's one-to-one, one-to-many, how do you design a talk in such a way, whether it is 1-to-3 in a boardroom, 1-to-5, 1-to-20, 1-to-100, 1-to-1,000, how do you influence people to buy into whatever it is the message is about? Now, you could be a CEO, wanting to buy into the vision of the organization and get the buy-in for employees at the ground roots level, the users in effect, who are going to implement that strategy. Most CEOs can't do that. Not really. You know, they might give lip service to it, but how many are truly inspirational and understand exactly? Most are afraid of it. They're afraid of going out in front of those employees, right? Most of them.
Is it all teachable, or is it some of it like a natural gift?
It's entirely teachable, given enough time. It's entirely, well, given two things. One, enough desire on the part of the person. You know, if you don't value it, then you won't do it. And, you know, just give it enough time. I can take, if I have enough concentrated effort, I can take someone from unbelievably terribly bad to unbelievably well class in like 3 or 4 weeks. And I've done that many, many times with somebody who's like, just not good, you know, really not good. To then go on stage in front of 5,500 people, like, oh my God, is that the same person? Because it's just a process, in essence. It's just a process that anybody could follow. People think people are naturally born. Speakers, actually, I'm quite introverted, generally speaking. You know, most of the time, you know, in the sort of idle chit-chat conversation, it's a bit uncomfortable for me, quite frankly. So a lot of introverts make very, very, very good speakers because they're into ideas. They're what? They're into ideas. An introvert's into ideas. Okay. They're into things and ideas in their head. So they've got good ideas. They just need to be, once they're shown how to present it and perform it, my God, their content's so rich, so deep, so empowering, because they've got stuff there to say. Do you understand? Because they're a deep thinker a lot of the time. So there's lots to say. They just need to unlock it. And once you unlock it, it's like, wow, this person's like really. It doesn't stop them. It doesn't mean that they're an extrovert all the time thereafter. It doesn't mean that. It just knows that when they hit that stage, they're able to switch that button on and step into that power and become it. Yeah.
And it seems as though sometimes it's difficult to sort of also process that information. You know, I know sometimes even when I do stuff for camera even now, I have to think of the best way to get it out. And sometimes if I just splurt what's going on in my head, it doesn't make any sense. So it's, for me, I like the process part because it helps me put that in, like you say, I suppose at the very beginning, ask the question that you want to answer instead of what the way your mind's thinking about it. When you blurt it out, it's just a mixture of words.
Yeah. In the same way, I mean, you had some prepared, thoughts and ideas about questions. We probably go off on a different tangent, and that's fine, because you're in the game, you're thinking, so you're thinking of the next question. A poor interview is someone who just asked the questions they wrote down, and everyone listening to that just feels it. You can hear it, you can feel that person isn't really listening or caring. They're just going through a process. So the process is there, but it has to be loose enough, the process, to allow freedom of expression. And what I mean by that is that there is a route to get there, but ultimately there's a little bit of art along the way. And we might actually take a few slight deviations along the way, but we will always end up at exactly the right place. But we need to leave enough space and room in the presentation for something good to come through us, for it to be alive in that moment, because sometimes we're in that state on stage, and because you're different to the last time, you'll pull in a few different references that you might not have had previously, or you didn't think about previously, and you have to allow the freedom of that. So in your head, okay, I need an example now, and you go, okay, so let me think about an example here, and then suddenly a new example comes, and be prepared when that new idea comes, like a flash of inspiration at that moment. Allow yourself to go with that rather than the pre-prepared one, because the one you go with in the moment may be way better than the one you thought about when you were thinking previously. But that all takes to trust intuition. You've got to trust that guidance, that moment, right? We're all doing that all the time. We lose that instinct. We dull it out by, this stuff and just being, totally distracted all the time. But when you get into an inspired state, when you get into flow, when you get into that magic, the rhythm, the matrix, whatever you want to call it, right, then something's coming through you. There's a resonance that can come through in that moment, and you can have inspired, and you walk off stage and go, bloody hell, that was good. And you can't even remember half the time what you said because you were just in the moment. So again, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying we go on stage and don't have a structure, but the structure needs to be loose enough, just loose enough to allow some stuff to come through in that moment that maybe you hadn't necessarily thought you'd say.
So if you're sitting there as a CEO or leader of a business listening to this, and it's like, well, look, I'm fine. I've got a lot of great people that work to me, or work for me, and can do this sort of stuff. What would you say to people? Who is this type of stuff relevant for? Who is it important to be able to communicate effectively, whether on camera or on a stage? Who's this for, and why do you think it's important if you do?
Anyone who has a role that has influence, where they're looking to influence somebody, whether that's the end client or somebody who works with the end client. Clearly, the higher we go up the chain, the more of that influence takes place. The CEO in a large organization, they might say, I care about everyone. But they can't care about everyone, because they don't even know everyone's name. It's impossible for any human being to care for that number of people, right? So therefore, they have to care for the 100 people below them that they do have access to and do know on a first name basis. So it has to start from here, and that person has to have good enough presentation skills and influencing skills and impacting skills and information sharing skills to be able to impact that group of people. So in turn, those people can impact the group below them. So that in turn, they can impact their clients. So that message filters down from the top. But if the guy at the top or the girl at the top isn't doing it, and it only is happening here, I would feel that person was a little bit divorced from the whole process. So I think, more than ever, leadership needs to have that element where someone's being truly inspiring and, and they are really, truly being in the moment and sharing. And what it's like, all good organizations want to get to the point where it feels like a family to them and no one wants to leave, right? No one wants to leave because, and they're not even want to. And if someone else is offering good money, I don't want to leave because this place is, it's me, and they feel part of the organisation. That can only happen when organisations start and people from the top start sharing something that comes from a deeper place, and that we're going back into story. We're going back in again now to people sharing and being open and genuine and not vulnerable, that's not the right word, but certainly open and genuine and sharing something about themselves and the mission. When that happens, people start to care a lot more. People don't go to work. It's been proved time and time again that people don't go to work just because of money. It's one of the poorest motivators long term is money. The greatest motivator of all is praise, genuine praise and being thankful for what you've done. A genuinely person feeling like they're growing and developing and adding value and feel like they're not just a tiny little cog in a wheel, but actually feel that this machine would actually die without me. I know I might only the cogs this big, but if you take me out, this whole thing just disappears, right? They want you to feel that important in that organisation.
Do you think we make a lot of excuses up for not doing that? Like, I know I used to, and I know people who do say, well, look, I don't need to do that. We've got other people, and I'm... Because I suppose if you have really got something good to say, but you can't, like you say, touch all those people, then I suppose you can make excuses that, maybe that's just not me. But I suppose nowadays with technology and video, you can do it. But I suppose maybe comes back to that fear of speaking again. Do you think that's part of what holds us back?
Yes, and again, the higher we go up, unconsciously. The more we get shut away, the more we go into our ivory tower. We can say our door is always open, but most people are afraid to walk through it because they don't know you see. Now you might be the nicest guy and girl in the world. People walk in and you're always welcoming, but they don't know that. They don't know that until you walk through that door. And just because of the name CEO on the freaking door, they're not going to walk through it. And so you've got to walk through their door, you've got to get into their homes, and you've got to get into their heart so they don't have to walk through that door to know you. That's the key.
Yeah, and I suppose so even if you're not selling in terms of selling a product, you're also selling to the people that work to you in a roundabout way. Selling is probably the wrong word, but I suppose selling why, what your belief is and why you're...
By the way, I want to challenge you. Like you say that, I was selling, but you're almost like, oh, that feels wrong to say selling. There's nothing wrong with selling. Selling is serving. Selling an idea to someone is serving, right? We have to sell this. We've got to get away from this. Selling is a bad thing. Selling is a great thing, because selling is identifying where somebody is, finding it one to go, and finding a way to meet the two together, closing the gap. So if you're an employee, and this is where you are as an employee, and this is where you want to go as an employee, this is where you want to end up to, this is what you want to gain, and then my job as your manager is to bridge that gap for you, to find a way that you can, through me, through organisation, through us and what we do, let's find a way that you can get to where you want to go. And sometimes getting to where you want to go means you leave, and that's okay too. Sometimes we have to say, okay, we get to this point. When you get to this point, you'll have outgrown this organisation. Thank you so much for your service. Off you go, good luck. And that's organic, that's brilliant. We need to do that rather than say, oh no, but you're getting out too big now. You're getting, you're outside, we're trying to limit you. And people understand that, and they know that. So we have to be willing to understand that employees are only ever temporary assets. And the more that we hire people, the greatest thing that somebody said to me recently, they said to me, I was a speaker of mine, and I took him, he came, he was in Dubai, and I was out for dinner with him, and they said, no, you give me so much, like I feel it's really one-sided. Is there anything I can do for you, he said to me. I said, yes, outgrow me, outshine me, do better than me. Right? Because that's the greatest gift. Tony Robbins said that years ago. He said the greatest way you can honour your mentor is to outgrow them. That's right for him, of course, he's 6'7", but you get the point, right? Is to outgrow the person. We mustn't limit people. If we do, we won't get the value from them when they're with us, right? So we've got to be, see that because if we really care, like when someone says, so often they say, how you doing? How are you? Do you actually care about the answer? Or are we just saying it because it's what we say? Do I really care? It's like, how are you? Listen, that's what people hear. Like, how are you? All right, okay, how's the kids? How's things? You've got to really freaking care. Not jump in with, oh yeah, and then start talking about yourself, right? So we've got to develop, that's what leadership really is. It's about caring, really, really caring. I mean, like, put that in a box, you know? That's a box, like, it's the simplest thing in the world, but actually really care. Like, that is a value you can stamp right all over your companies, to really care about the people that work with your organization, right?
And you've stood on stage with some amazing leaders, and I'll let you sort of mention who they are. Has being effective at communication been important to some of those? I guess some of the most, what you people would class as some of the most successful people in the world.
I guess so. Yeah, like for me, I've grew up listening to tapes of the greats, the Jim Rohns and the Brian Tracy's, Tony Robbins, etc., Robert Kiyosaki. And clearly those early pioneers figured out this game of information sharing, because what they figured out, I suppose, is that you can make just as much influence and impact and income sharing what you know rather than just doing what you know. So they kind of figured that out, and they were the inspiring people. And it's, for me, like over the years to have walked on stage, shared the stage, and worked with some of those same people. I remember seeing Brian Tracy when I worked for that insurance company. Brian Tracy, for those people who don't know, is like a bit of a godfather of the sort of personal development industry. He's got loads of tapes and products, loads of books out, etc. And they sent me, Churchill, the insurance company I was working for, they sent me on a seminar to learn about personal development and stuff. And I went to a Brian Tracy seminar, not too far from here actually, in Kensington Town Hall. And I went to shake his hand at lunchtime, and he pulled his hand away from me and berated me for my terrible, non-manly, wet fish handshake. And so it was fascinating. It was quite, I was a bit shocked at the time, but that's what a good mentor does, right, I suppose, is occasionally jolt you, wake you up to a reality that, because they're unattached to needing your love. They're unattached to needing your validation, right? It's a bit like, I suppose, a good PT needs to be unattached, if you like, to needing to please their client, right? Because let's face it, you've got to push them, right? And if they don't do X, Y, and Z, they ought to be telling you, right? Telling the truth. So he did that for me, and it was funny then, I don't know how many years it was later, probably a good 15, 16 years later, perhaps. More than that, actually, probably 20 years. I was sharing the stage with him in London and then in South Africa as well. I got a photograph of me and him in South Africa, actually behind a glass of wine, and actually shaking his hand because I just, I'd told him the story of what had happened, X number of years previously. So, it's fascinating for me. I just consider myself little old me. I think we all do, don't we?
And you've had with some presidents, you've been sharing the stage. Right?
Yeah, Bill Clinton, and also Donald Trump. That was before Trump was actually a president, to be fair, but.
And were they, like, in terms of their communication, like, is that something that's been important?
I mean, let's be honest, you're unlikely to win any kind of election unless you've got charisma. I mean, the person who wins is the one with the most charisma, not necessarily the person that's best for the job. Person with the most charisma, and if you look at Trump, for example, love him or loathe him, and that's the point, is that he's going to divide opinion because he has one. And so in order to attract a fan base, in order to attract a following, in order to attract your tribe, whatever that is, the tribe needs to understand what its values are. And so if the organization fails to consistently communicate its why and its values, then the people don't know what it stands for. And therefore they're ambivalent or ambiguous about it and don't tend to want to stick around much. And if we talk about memberships, for example, when we talk about gyms, members, what does that even mean? Membership, what does that word even member? Remember why you came. Remember your values. Getting value as in renewal of membership, remember. Are they going to remember why they really came? Because they came to get fitter, but they stayed because of the community. Right. They don't stay for the fitness. They probably stay for the community. That's what it is. The environment is what really makes them stay. So what are the core values? And are those instilled? If you look at Apple, for example, when Steve Jobs had it years and years ago, the why was always present because Steve Jobs was always present. So his why, his drive, his innovate, his ideas about, what a good Apple product was and what he was going to throw in the bin, because he knew it was about the user interface. He knew it was about the interface between computer and person to make it that feel that felt like it was an extension of yourself, right? That's what he believed in. That was his big why of all. That was it. That was it constantly. That was the why. And then what he failed to do was actually document that why in some way or communicate it in such a way that was left behind. And then what happened is when he left, because he was ousted, then they all came in and followed everything else seemed to be the same, but the thing that was big different was there was a whole new why. Right. And Apple's products didn't work. They just weren't the same products anymore because Jobs, that why that he had instilled in people, that set of values that he commanded and demanded in people was no longer there. And so that's why it fell apart. And of course, when he came back in, you know what happened. Apple went completely crazy again, and now it's what it is today. So CEOs, whomever, whatever their title is, they've got to be able to communicate that why consistently, ongoingly, forever, never stop, because otherwise that organization. I'll tell you an interesting exercise I've seen done at one of my trainings. I had somebody come in one time who was good at learning through game, and he played this game once. It was what you had to do is you had to build your own following, your own tribe, as it were. And the way he did it is everyone was single to begin with, and you had to go out and recruit people to your tribe, to your community. So you had to have a name for the community and what it was about. That was round one, went for about 20 minutes. At the end of 20 minutes, you stopped, and of course now there was pockets of groups. No longer was anybody single. People had given up theirs to join this other person's, right? And so people were good at communicating that vision. And this continued. It continued. And then another round. Eventually, we got down to about 4 or 5 bigger groups. There was one bigger group. Then one round again. And what happened is people were merging. The groups were merging, right? And one group was big. It was ridiculous. One guy that ran it was actually my dentist, and it was like Reasons to Smile or something. And the other group was the conga group, who liked congaring, right? It's just random stuff. And they merged together and became the Smile While You Conga group, right? Which sounds fantastic, and it was good for a while. And then in the next round, it completely dissipated. Everybody left, and they ended up with nobody. You know why? Because it got so big that it lost its initial pull. Now, I came to conga. Yeah. I came to, see? Because it lost its core values. And as soon as it happens, goodbye, good night, you're out, finished. And so that's why CEOs and large company, they need to get out from behind that chair. For the reasons I mentioned, because nobody's walking through that open door, even though you've got open door policies because they're afraid to. They don't know you've got to get to them. But you have to keep communicating that vision constantly because people will forget. They will forget, and they won't remember.
In terms of of Trump as an example, like him or hate him, but you think he's very good at his why and his values, and that's just easy for people to identify. Right.
Unbreakable.
Right.
And people gravitate towards people with certainty.
Right.
Whether that certainty comes from somebody who's creating a cult, right? Or somebody who's creating something that's creating a community, right? People gravitate to people who are uncertain move towards people with certainty. People with no vision move towards people with vision, right? So, if you want to create that, because, from a science point of view, things of a smaller mass are attracted to things of a bigger mass. So if your vision is big and you're good at communicating it, you will attract all these smaller people to be part of that vision. Does that make sense? But you can't just communicate that one time or stick it up on these are our values on a list there on the wall. You can't just, you can't pay lip service to it. It has to be expressed through people. So when we cut the cake, we can see it. Yeah. When we cut the stick of rock, there it is. If we cut the C in half, there he is. We can see that's what he means. Because people want it, they need to feel it's congruent. And we can't get that from a written word. We can't get that from a document. It has to be spoken, because then it's only then, it only then does it resonate, does it ring at the right tone that go, yeah, it's true. Otherwise, you know what people like to go, yeah, but it's bollocks, isn't it, really? They just say that. But when somebody means it, when they share it and that vision is true, everyone gets on board and say, yeah, he's a good guy. Yeah, he means it. We're part of it. And then what happens is they tribal together, you know? And now the company's song, whatever it is, everybody sings it and doesn't feel like a fool. They go, no, this is our anthem, right? Yeah. They sing it because it's them. They don't feel embarrassed by it. It's like, no, I own it. I own the national anthem of this company. You know, whatever. Not every company has a national anthem or a song, but you get the point. Yeah. Is that, you know, when nobody's giving lip service anymore, we're all part of something. We actually care about each other, you know?
And I think if you look at a lot what's happening in fitness industry, and I guess other businesses, is where you've got these big companies that have probably lost that sort of why and those values, and then probably some of these smaller businesses that you see around that are very strong. They are the conga dancers, and they, you know, everybody knows what they're going to get, and they seem to have those great communities that you know, from the top down, everything
That's right.
you look at.
That's true.
Is congruent.
Yeah. Yeah, and the big companies can learn a lot from those nimble, innovative, up-and-coming, using guerrilla marketing techniques type. Just because you're an organisation that is big doesn't mean you can't use guerrilla tactics to market. You should. The problem with big organisations is they get lazy because they've got money. And lots of money produces lazy marketing. And we just, you know, they don't use innovative marketing techniques. You know, if you have a big organisation with innovative guerrilla marketing tactics, you will create a guerrilla. You'll create a monster that's unbelievably powerful. But most people don't do it. They get lazy. You know, big pockets makes you lazy. Oh, just stick an ad in the newspaper. Oh, just, you know, just use old rubbishy stuff, you know. I mean, like, honestly, this is what I want these big organisations to get, is that the cost of marketing on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Snapchat, whatever, is so ridiculously underpriced compared to traditional media. It's so underpriced. And it won't always be that way. It won't always be that. When these big companies figure it out, because they've just listened to this bloody podcast and we'll hire him to do this or whatever, you know, once they figure that out, once they start putting that money in Facebook, the cost of attention on Facebook, on those, or LinkedIn, that whatever it is, on those news feeds just went up because that big money's coming in. That will happen, right? When TV first came along, right, and all it existed previously was radio, no one was putting money in TV ads. It was ridiculously underpriced, right? And still people thought, no one's going to watch that, you know, radio, because that's what everyone's used to, right? Ridiculous. Look at it now, right?
Well, even Google, we used to sell kettlebells on Google, and the price, like now, the price to do kettlebells on Google is more than you can, probably more than the kettlebell.
Exactly. So you've always got to look where attention is. And now, and Google are afraid about this as well, because attention's moving away from the laptop, right? It's moving to the mobile phone, and what's the first app? You know, the first thing you don't go into is the World Wide Web. Your first app that's there is your Facebook or Instagram. Those two probably, or LinkedIn, whatever your favourite one, that's the first one. So that's where attention is, right? Markers always have to go where attention is. Attention used to be on newspapers. It used to be on television. It used to be on radio. Radio is now replaced by podcasting. Newspapers are replaced by social media. And TV is replaced by YouTube. That is where attention is. Why? Because people no longer want a scheduled bit of content. And they go to it and go, there's nothing on. We don't want to do that anymore. We want to go and search and find what we want, right? We want that. We want that interaction. We want to find what we want. Facebook isn't a search facility, but its goal is to provide the content that you want. Its algorithm is trying to do that consistently to put in front of you the local social media, your friend's conversation. It's trying quickly as it can to throw that into there straight away at the top of the feed. If you scroll down, you should find your friend, the people you know, gets less and less. The people you know the most should be the top of your feed. That's how their algorithm's designed to work. Again, their goal is, how can we consistently keep on the platform? Same as years ago on the newspaper, how do we get people wanting to consistently read this newspaper? Because the newspaper makes money through the advertising now. I mean, you can't sell newspapers for toffee, you can't. So it has to sell it through the advertising. That's its monetization model. The only way I can do that is to have good news. So you've always, any organisation has to get the blend right between commercial and content, right? You know, you watch, I don't know, a movie, you watch, for example, like X Factor, for example, right, which has quite a lot of ads in it, then, you know, the bits in between just have to be really good. Otherwise, you won't sit through the ads, right? Yeah. So you've got to get the blend right. There's got to be enough content of a quality content of nature, and then every now and again, Gary Vaynerchuk calls it jab, jab, hook, right? So jab is the content. The right hook is the sale. Yeah. So you've got to have enough. If you're just right hooking all the time, well, guess what? Everyone's seeing it coming, aren't they? So they're kind of getting out of the way all the time, right? So we've got a jab to set up the right hook, right? So that's what you're doing. You know, you're really genuinely providing value. I've had a great time here. Yeah. You know, again, you know, this is just tapped into stuff that I've thought about and known about, but you give me a vehicle to express it. And anybody listening into this hopefully picks something from it. But in doing so, you're also positioning what you do in a huge way, such that, you know, when or if they are ready next to get their equipment, whether they are a gym individual PT person that's looking to build out their business and get the kettlebells, or to get the jumpy up and down box, or whatever it's called, you know, whatever the equipment you guys have, or the ropes or whatever, you know, once, you know, if they're listening to this and they know that, you're visible because you gave value. You didn't go, look at my ropes, you know, right. You know, you didn't do that. You're creating value. You're building the audience so that when they are ready, you're the guy.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That's and it's sort of put it in a different perspective for me. But I think, you know, the key takeaways is that, you know, regardless of who you are, you know, being able to communicate what you're about, whether you're, you know, the trainer, the CEO, is really, really important, because you know, that is what I suppose attracts people to your message, your tribe as such. And I suppose, and as you said, you know, you've got to either have people that understand what you're about and follow you, or don't. If not, I suppose you're in the middle, and maybe the companies that are in the middle have just done a good job because there's probably nobody yet challenging them and that are strong enough to, you know, to stand for something. So I think that's a key thing for me that I've sort of taken away, and probably something I'll think about even more in my own business, is communicating that both to the staff and to the customers. And I think the second way,
it's okay if you put people off, you know, to find your, you know, what defines your tribe, not tribe. Right. Everyone who is not your tribe also defines your tribe. Yeah. And going back to our smile and conga, if we mix these two tribes together, you have no tribe. No. It looks bigger in the beginning, and then it's nothing. Because we don't mix people together that aren't the same folks.
Yeah, and I think sometimes there's a fear of trying to say, oh, we're not for them. You know, sometimes you ask people, who's your customer? It's like, oh, we want everyone in here, but I suppose that's probably the fatal mistake.
Classic. And all the time. Who do you see as your ideal client? Well, everyone really what? Everyone that really, if you've got a really deep pocket then, yeah? Because you know, you've got to go on Facebook and go, okay, so who am I going to target? All. Good luck. It's like, you know, like it's going to cost you an absolute fortune.
Yeah. So having that understanding who you are and who you're not, and then being able to personally share that, whether it's with your top 2 or 3 people or your top 100, but having the skills to share that, because I suppose they've got to look up to someone, you know, at different levels to be able to say, well, where are we going, I suppose.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, it's a top level skill, you know, right from back Roman times, Greek philosophy, whatever. You know, it's been revered as a top-level skill for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and that's not going to change. If anything, there's never been a time in human history it's been even more important. You know, because the Aristotles of this day, I mean, wonder what he'd be putting on there as content.
That's true. So before my final question, then, Andy, just you've got a bunch of stuff. I'm not that I'm using this as a plug, but I did the university for a few years. I came every Sunday, left my wife at home. Destroyed our weekends, but it was so important for me that I really felt a lot of value of spending a day a month at some dodgy hotel in Heathrow. Right, yeah. They've got better, I'm sure.
No, not really. Cheap and cheerful, works for me.
But the value was just amazing. You know, I met a lot of people and just learnt so much about being able to, you know, not just speaking, but just the whole process that went behind it. And we made some, you know, significant changes in our business from what I learned from you.
Yeah, you mentioned you won some nice contracts, I think, off the back of it, I think.
Yeah, I don't want to say too much about the details, but yeah, it made a big difference to us in our business, and also how we, you know, help a lot of people that work work with us, by understanding those processes. But, tell us a bit about what you do, how people can get, whether they're companies or individuals, can get involved in your work.
Yeah, sure. I mean, just in terms of how to find me, andyharrington.com, super simple. Go there, there's all contact details on there. There's loads of free resource in there. There's web classes you can join. There's my book you can get. So there's loads of ways to get started. But what we really essentially do, the most important thing, what we've been talking about, is building the message. Building the message and or the marketing pieces that go around that. Whether you're a large corporation or one man or girl band, really. And we just help people design, develop and deliver their messages. Purposefully, impactfully, influentially. How do you go about building that message, building the story, finding out what your story even is, and then figuring out how to deliver it? How do you pitch when you are actually needing to pitch? Not everyone listening to this will be looking to pitch, but how do you sell your ideas across? How do you formulate that framework we spoke about as well? We do all that. That's our Speakers University program. It's like a 4-day course. Very popular. And then, off the back of that, if people want to make the longer term commitment in time and investment, then they can join our academy course as you do, which is like we no longer do just one day actually. We cement it. So we found people having come, like you said, every month on a Sunday at one point, one time a month. Instead we do it 4 times a year now. So it's 4 quarterly meetings, but there are Friday, Saturday and Sunday. So it's 4 longer weekends. And we found people easier to it's less travelling in essence, because you only got to travel 4 times. Because we have people flying internationally all over. So to compartmentalise like that is easier for busy people. So that's what we do. So I love it. It's good.
And do you go into businesses as well?
We go to corporations. If people need a tailored thing to go in and talk about this to their key members or train. And we've got mentors as well. So we have trained mentors. We have about, I think, 44 different trained mentors who can critique presentations and design them. So which means that because I'm busy, that means that if they're looking for a tailored service to work with the CEO or the key executives to build these talks and presentations, whether it's a sales presentation or one to the staff, then we've got the mentors to go and actually provide and tailor that service, which either can be done actually physically face to face, but actually what we figured out a really good tactic is we get people to record themselves doing the presentation. We then send that video to us, and what we do is we pop it onto our software. We'll watch a few minutes of it, pause the action, and commentate as the action's freeze framed. We'll commentate on what you just did and say, okay, here's what you did really good, but when you did this, see, this is what happened. So what we suggest is don't do that, do this instead, and then we watch more action. So what might be a 30 to 1 hour presentation could turn into a 5-hour piece of feedback for them to consume over time, because we break up the feedback, if that makes sense. And the beauty of that is we found is that because we pause the action and commentate, then the feedback is related directly behaviourally to what just happened. It's easy for the person to see what we're seeing, so we can communicate it more easily. And also I think there's something about watching yourself on video and it being critiqued, you're a little bit less defensive, because it's kind of over, you're out of it a bit, and you can watch it back, a few weeks later and be a bit more objective about it. And we've actually found that gives people massive accelerated growth, So, all those things are available, whether you're a corporation or just an entrepreneur looking to make business by just yourself,
Yeah, I remember watching a few of those when we did the academy, and it was, just useful to sort of explain the different steps and how you can sort of do a little bit better, or how you can drop something in at a certain point. And I think you compared it, you also did some breakdowns of some successful speakers as well, and sort of explain what they were doing and the meaning or the little cues, I suppose, that you don't notice, which is what they're doing when they're engaging and activating different people, that you're sort of pinpointing those things that they're doing. Which I also found very valuable, picking up on a lot of those tools and techniques. In fact, one of the things that reminded me, I was at Robbie Williams last night, and
was he here? Is he?
He was, he was in Hyde Park, and one of the things I know we'd always learnt with you is getting that audience participation early on. And
make him feel like be part of the show.
Be part of the show. And I know Freddie Mercury and also Robbie Williams does a great job. You feel as though you're part of it instead of you just being an observer.
Is it?
And I think that's very difficult.
Engagement. Back to that word engagement again.
Yeah. And I found that when I was speaking, always something I've struggled with, but when you did it, suddenly you were in a different level?
Yeah, it's always fearful, isn't it? Because you do it, and the fear is people don't engage and don't, say yes or put their hand up. But when they do, and they will, it's feedback to you. Go, oh, this is working. They're on side, and constantly you need that feedback. Otherwise, you won't really know. In a one-to-one conversation, you pick up, understanding signs. People nod their head or smile or whatever, but you're not going to pick that up in a group of 100 people or 1,000 people. So you've got to get them to visibly engage. And when there's a cacophony of people singing or saying yes or whatever it is, it's a completely different experience for everyone, yeah.
And I guess being able to do that on video as well, which I know you teach, is also pretty useful, because you've got someone on the phone and it's like, right, how can I now engage them?
Yeah, I mean, of course they can't respond back, but the way you do that is like, you've got to, firstly, when you're looking down the camera, you've got to remember you're always talking to one. Never speak as if you're talking to a group, right? Because when that person's sitting around, hasn't got anybody else with them probably, just them on their phone. So and you've got to use the word you a lot to make the message personal. And when you do the word you, if you put your hand out, like, hi, so if you're here listening to this and you're wanting to improve your public speaking, then what happens with that word, that hand going down the camera? Like, wow, like it feels like they're talking just to me. So you've got to use techniques like that, because otherwise you feel very dissociated, detached, and again, people don't care, don't follow.
Yeah. So final question, Andy. Escape Your Limits is about escaping what you or other people have said is impossible and going on to make it possible. What would be one of your memorable examples of escaping your own personal limits?
Well, it has to be from my personal transformation recently. So I was at age 46. We found out we were having another child, myself and Becky. I have 6 children altogether, and I was 46 years old, and I said, "Wow, gosh, I'm going to have another child." It's like, wow, this is amazing. And I thought, gosh, I was figuring out the ages. Like, when he's 10, I'll be 56. And I started doing the numbers, and and my wife's quite young as well. She's much younger than me. So I thought, look, and I looked at myself. I was really not in that good a shape, And I thought, I'm going to have to really do something here. I thought, right, I'm going to commit to it. I go, better why? So I started going to the gym. I got a little bit of results, not massive. It was just like a tiny bit of improvement. I felt better about myself. And then sadly in the August, this was in the May, June, and then sadly in the August, because I started just before he was going to be born, but unfortunately he didn't make it. He was stillborn, like little Aston. He didn't make it. We found out the day before he was due to be born that he wasn't breathing. Or his heart wasn't beating, which is incredibly sad, obviously. And people don't talk about this, but actually there's a lot. Of course, this happens a lot, but people don't really talk about it very much. But stillbirths or miscarriages, very common. And life's very fragile at that time. And so again, because you don't talk about this stuff, I didn't know what was going to happen. So it turns out she's still got to give birth to him the next day, because you kind of think, oh, they'll just whip it out, but they don't. Anyways, so he came out and he was born, and we held him in our arms. He was perfectly formed. There was nothing physically wrong with him at all. He was just normal, but just not alive. And we held him in our arms for several hours, invited up other members of the family. They also, if they wanted to, they came. My older children came as well, and held him. It was a very touching and beautiful, in many ways, moment. Very, very humbling, definitely. And I remember thinking to myself at the time, wow, this was my original reason. You were my original reason for getting myself in shape. And I thought, I looked at him and I thought, well, you no longer, my little boy, you don't longer have a body to live in, but I do. So I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to double down on my efforts now, and I'm not going to give up. And I still connect him all the time now, but so I guess he helped me escape my limits, and I doubled down. I've been doing it for 4 years now. And so I was 50 just a few weeks ago, and as a celebration in my 50th birthday, I thought I'm going to really try to test myself. And I thought, okay, so I booked one of these photo shoots, like a proper gym photographer, who does like the, what the magazines are. I don't have them off the top of my head now, but all these fitness magazines. He's one of those kind of photographers. So I thought, okay, I was looking pretty good, but to get to the next level, I had to really go for it. So with my trainer, I said, this is what I'm going to do. So really cut down, I was on a real big cut on the calories to really, shred even more fat get right down. I mean, my diet on the last day was ridiculous. You know, like no water for 24 hours, no liquid. In fact, I was specifically told to drink a glass and a half of red wine the night before to dry my body out even more. And then on the day I woke up, my first meal was steak. This is in the morning, 6 a.m. Steak, jacket potato, and jam. Because apparently it's all good, you know, for the glycogen, for the muscles, making the vascularity come out, all this. I don't know, that's later. Then my next meal, which was about 2 hours later, was 4 rice cakes. Remember, this is no water for 24 hours. 4 rice cakes with peanut butter on them. Just experience that in a minute, right? And then 2 hours later, 2 rice cakes with Nutella on them. And then an hour before, just 2 spoonfuls of just big heaped dollops of Nutella. And then 10 minutes before I worked out, half a bag of wine gums. This was all designed to make the vascularity come out. And actually, as it happened, it worked. I mean, that, plus the combination of good lighting, combination of, you know, Vaseline in the body to make it all shiny in the dark, and obviously a fantastic photographer, we managed to put myself looking, without doubt, the best shape of my life ever. And I've obviously got all those photographs forever now. So that was, for me, because if you look back, you know, at the photograph I took.
I saw the before.
And it was like pipe cleaner arms. It was just your classic dad body, really, you know,
Yeah.
really, and not even a particularly good dad, but not. I wasn't fat in any way. There was just no shape. It was just like a blancmange, you know, just like a formless person. And so that, you know, to see that transformation is quite remarkable, you know, and it's something you don't want to give up now. You've gone that far. Actually, after the shot, I actually put on about 9 pounds in a week, just because most of it was water going back in probably. And so I'm just back on another little cut at the moment because I've got a holiday. Well, 4 days away. It's my anniversary, just really soon, like tomorrow. And so I booked myself and Becky and a couple of friends of ours. We're going to go to Saint-Tropez on a yacht for 4 days. So I thought, okay, let's get another cut. So I look good for that.
Nice
as well.
Instagram post pictures coming out. Then.
Well, actually, what I'm going to do is, funny enough, and not just that, but I'm going to shoot some ads, some videos for content videos and some ads while I'm there, because nice setting on a yacht, for example, in Saint-Tropez, a great nice setting to be shooting some more value-based content videos, or just some ads out there to get more people to be attracted into what I do. So I'm always thinking, where's the environment or opportunity that I can grab, an iPhone if necessary, or a cameraman with me perhaps, to shoot and pick up some stuff.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, Andy, it's been wonderful. I could speak for hours.
It's been great.
I appreciate how you've helped me and our business, and wish you success in the future. Thank you, mate.
You're welcome, mate. Thank you.